We've still got 5 seconds left. Is somebody else going to swoop in and set the price? You could get a 3.0 Amazing Fantasy 15 for this price. Another bid. $1,001. Got 100,000 to spare, folks. You got 10 seconds. You can jump in and snag it. This is just closed, 95,109. I think it's going to go up. Hi, and welcome to Grails to Astonish. We're just getting going on the final day of ComicLink's Summer Featured Auction. The first book just closed about a minute ago. Tales to Astonish 27. This is a book I would love to bid on. Tales to Astonish 27 is the first appearance of the guy who became Ant-Man. I don't see it going up in value at all. It's just one I want. And it is very scarce with 1,147 copies. I think that's lower than Fantastic Four number 3. The Fantastic Four 3 is the lowest population early Marvel Silver Age book I've found. And that population is 1,417. I mean, you can find lower populations in books that aren't keys. I'm sure Tales to Astonish 26 has a lower population than 27, but 27 is a book that if you have it, you should get it graded. And there are very few graded. Yeah, there's only 106 Tales to Astonish 26 is graded. There are certainly a lot more floating around. Tales to Astonish 27 is worth a fair bit, so you'd think that most of them have been found and graded. The population is still very, very low, and a lot of these 16% are restored. So I would love to get a copy. I'm not going to bid on this one. Fair market for the 7.0 is 7,750. If I see a low grade copy, I might scoop it up at some point, but I'm not going to bid on the 7.0 or the 5.0. Once again, we've had in this auction, I keep harping about this. Amazing Fantasy 15, they got a 7.0 and a 5.0. Amazing Spider-Man 1, 7.0, 5.0. Journey into Mystery 83, 7.0, 5.0. Tales to Astonish 27, 7.0, 5.0. They seem to like putting a 7.0 and a 5.0 of every Marvel key in their auctions. This one's about to close. The 7.0 fair market is 7,750. It's at 6,700 with 10 seconds left. Ooh, it moved up. It's at $100 below fair market with 1 second left to go. And it's stopped right at fair market, $100 shy of fair market for the 7.0. So the price is holding on that one. The 5.0's fair market is $4,200, and we are exactly at fair market, $4,200. So I'll bet this one does not move. Both these books hold the line and stay at fair market. Of course, the 7.0 looks a lot better than the 5.0, although the 5.0 has white pages, 7.0 off-white to white. That white pages might cause someone to bid above fair market. Let's see. 3, 2, 1. Closing. Nope. Stopped at 4,200. Fair market for both of these books. Then we got the first appearance of the Wasp, which is barely considered a key at all, but it's another one that I would love to have because I would just like to have, for my own enjoyment as a collector, the first appearance of all the original Avengers. I have the first appearance of Hulk, Thor, and Iron Man. I have sort of pseudo the first appearance of Ant-Man, but not quite. So I'd like Tales to Astonish 27. I'd also like Tales to Astonish 44. Get the first appearance of Wasp, and that is a very attainable book. This copy is 8.0 off-white to white pages with a fair market of $2,800, and it's selling for $1,755. Let's see what it went for. $2,315. Once again, 20% below fair market. I'm going to get a 4 or a 5 of this because, again, I don't think it's an investment book. It's not something that you can expect to turn a profit on. Wasp has already had her day in the MCU. I don't think she'll be back in any significant way anytime soon. It's just a book I'd like to have, so I will wait. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, first printing, issue 1. I don't see anything here indicating that it's the first printing, but I'm just going to assume it is because these prices are so high. I know that issue 1 of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had multiple printings, and I believe they look identical, and you have to open them up and look on the inside to see any indication of which is the first printing, because they only printed like 1,000. Yeah, we got 1,165. First printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1 only had 3,000 copies made, and they sold them out of the back of their car. Second printing was 6,000 copies. Third printing was 15,000 copies. So if you are getting Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1, first printing, you are buying one of 3,000 books in existence. That's remarkably low. And that explains why this book goes for so much, because even Fantastic Four #1, I think they probably made 200,000 copies of it back in the day. Only 2,000 of them survive, but generally comic books by major publishers had much larger runs. This was independently published, very, very small run. Of those 3,000 copies in the first printing, there are 1,165 graded. So less than half of them survived to the present day. Here we have the third printing, which was 15,000 copies, has 2,715 graded, and is worth very little. Here's the second printing of 6,000, only 801 graded from the second printing, and they go for a lot. Almost as much as the first printing. First printing, though, variant cover D. There's so many variants of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. First printing, if you have one of those 3,000 books, of which 1,165 still exist, only 37 are 9.8. This is not a 9.8. This is a 9.6. 9.6 white pages. There are 38 9.6s. Fair market on this is 38,000. I now have a better understanding of why a Copper Age book goes for such extraordinarily high prices. Yes, it's Copper Age, but it's not like a Marvel Copper Age book or even a DC Copper Age book. It is truly scarce. They only made 3,000, and half of those are gone. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are still active to this day. They're still making movies. They've been putting out comics, I think, pretty consistently for the last 40 years. And I think Eastman and Laird, maybe just Laird, not sure, they're back at it with new Turtles books. In any case, this closes in 5 seconds. $34,001 was the last bid. $38,000 is the price to beat. The last sale was on Heritage for $31,200, and this just closed above that. $34,001. Let's update. No movement. $34,000, beating Heritage's last sale, but below the sale before that and below fair market. It's a lot. That's a lot to pay, but it's the first Ninja Turtles book. Then we get a 9.4. Doesn't say anything about this being second or third printing, so I'm guessing this is still the first printing. 24,000 fair market, and this is off-white to white pages, which you don't want to see on anything after 1980. The pages should not be faded, and they probably used a lower quality paper than the major publishers were at that point. 20 seconds left to go. Bidding's at 15,507, significantly below fair market. Let's see what people are actually paying. The last sale on eBay is 16,499, and that is a record low. All the sales before that at 9.4 are above $20,000. 2019 is the last time anybody's paid less than 20,000. But then there was this sale 2 weeks ago on eBay for 16,499, and this is possibly just dropped below that. Let's see if it moved up. Yep, it did. It moved up to $17,010. So this at least beat the record low eBay sale from 2 weeks ago, but not by much. And that was a 9.4, also a 9.4 off-white to white. So we're closing on a weird one. 8.0 copy of Time Magazine, April 1941, with Hitler on the cover, naming him Man of the Year. It doesn't say Man of the Year anywhere on this, but I'm going to presume that this is the notorious Hitler Man of the Year cover from Time Magazine. And what's kind of darkly funny about this is it says right underneath the portrait of Hitler, it says, Hitler, spring is here. This is nothing to do with Hitler. They're just letting you know that it's springtime. Hitler, spring is here. This is selling for a lot of money, and I don't know who is bidding $6,100 on Hitler Man of the Year. I don't know what reason you would want to own this for other than being a fan of Hitler. It appears that ComicLink is selling Nazi memorabilia here. It is what it is. It's a part of history. I can see putting it up in a museum and saying, this happened. I can't see buying it for my collection to show my friends, hey, Hitler, Man of the Year. Pretty cool, huh? $6,100. No bidding war over that one. That's a lot. We just had the 9.8 white pages Tomb of Dracula 10 sale. That book had a fair market of $12,500. Bidding was at $6,100 last time I looked at it, but it's now up to $12,500, and it sold for $12,500. Exactly fair market value. So the census lists 0 copies of Tomb of Dracula at 9.9 does show us a sale of a 9.9 white pages with a very early serial number. So this has to exist. This could not have been cracked unless this was destroyed in a fire or something and they notified CGC to remove the label from the census, which also seems extraordinarily unlikely. I don't know why the census lists this book as not existing. I can see that it exists right here. Neither here nor there. There are 89.8 copies, so we should have an abundant history of sales. Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sales from this year alone, all on Heritage, for a pretty large variation in prices. The lowest was $11,520. That was the last sale. And then earlier this year, we had an $18,000. So the prices dropped precipitously, dropped by about 35% gradually over the course of this year. But ComicLink has beaten that with a $12,500 sale. But if you went to Heritage 3 months ago, you could have gotten it for less. Same book, 9.8 white pages. 9.6 off-white to white. Fair market is $5,000. This one sold for $6,688. That's very surprising. The 9.6 went above fair market and is not even white pages. Somebody overpaid for this book because this price is not going to go back up. The Blade movie does not appear to be happening unless I've missed some news. That's a lot to pay for a 9.6 when there are 80 9.8s and even apparently a 9.9. The 9.4 white pages, fair market is $2,800 and it sold for $2,475. Yeah, this 9.6 is really an outlier. Person was not doing their research when they bid that high on it, or they just really wanted it. 9.0 signed. Who signs Tomb of Dracula? Marv Wolfman, who wrote it. The creator of Blade signed this 9.0 white pages copy. So an unsigned fair market is $1,750. Let's see if we have a lot of copies of the signed one. Yeah, we've got 22 signed ones. So $2,070 for a signed one, $1,750 for an unsigned one. This one went for less than the unsigned, $1,408. That is probably less than any of these. Yeah, that's less than any Marv Wolfman signed copy of this book has sold for since 2018. 2019 is when the Blade movie was announced as coming to the MCU. So we've had 6 years for people to speculate on this book, and that now seems to have amounted to nothing. The prices are going back down. I think the 9.6 bidder did not get the message that Blade was not happening. Tomb of Terror 15 in 8.5 condition, creamed off-white pages. Fair market is $15,500. This is the same month that the Senate hearings occurred, which ended Pre-Code Horror, instituted the Comics Code. They were pushing things to the limit when this book came out. We have an exploding face with an eyeball popping out. $14,587 is where the bidding is at. $15,500 is the number to beat. Did not move. It sold for $14,587. That's still a lot, and there's very few copies of this book. What do we got? 149 graded copies, 7 in this grade, 15 in higher grades. You're not getting the best copy of this book. Not that it matters. It's an exploding face. It would still be gross at 3.0. We're 4 minutes from closing on 2 auctions that give me a headache. We've got Ultimate Fallout, number 4, first appearance of Miles Morales, 9.9. And we've got Ultimate Fallout 4, variant cover, 9.8 white pages. Both are outrageously overvalued for different reasons. This book is from 2011. There is only one 9.9. It's a new serial number. This just got graded. It's the first 9.9. If you think this is going to be the only 9.9, you're kidding yourself. This is one of the most graded books in existence, 18,850 copies. We've got 4,495 9.8s and one 9.9 that just got graded. I've said this about another book. If you cracked open all 4,495 9.8s and resubmitted them, would they give any of those 9.9s? Probably. If you take any of the 10,000 or more ungraded copies of this book that are floating around and submitted them to CGC, are any of those going to get 9.9s? Probably. So right now, this is the one and only 9.9. But it's not going to stay the only 9.9. And also, who cares? This 9.9, 10.0 stuff is silliness. A bunch of the 9.8s are going to look just as good as the 9.9. And we're taking a thing that sort of makes sense. There's good reason to distinguish a 5.0 from a 6.0. It's helpful if you're a collector to know what you're getting. When you get up to 9.0, it starts getting a little silly. You're down to these minute details. I can tell the difference between a 9.0 and a 9.2. 9.6 to 9.8, you're really getting into minute detail. And then with 9.9, CGC, to their credit, has made a video about what makes a 9.9 a 9.9, how it's different from a 9.8. That lends some credibility to this thing that's happening of 9.9 suddenly appearing, but it is so esoteric. Is that right? What does esoteric mean? Esoteric. That's exactly what this means. I had to look up esoteric to make sure I'm using it right. Something known, understood, or appreciated by only a small number of people, especially those with special knowledge or a shared specialized interest. Now, the comic book hobby, on the whole, is something that requires special knowledge or a shared specialized interest. But when you get into the minutia of grading at the really high level above 9.8, that is deeply, profoundly and I would say absurdly esoteric. Getting all excited about a book like this is crazy. So we have no idea what the 9.9 is going to sell for. 9.8 goes for $850 now because the craziness has died down. And 3 or 4 years ago, this book was going for insane prices. Just a regular old copy, so it was selling for $3,528, and this 9.9 is already at $17,500. Let's see where it closes. 10 seconds in. Oh my God, $28,500. We've still got 5 seconds left. Is somebody else going to swoop in and set the price? You could get a 3.0 Amazing Fantasy 15 for this price. Another bid, $31,001. Yeah, pretty sure an Amazing Fantasy 15 first appearance of Peter Parker Spider-Man would sell in 3.0 for less than this Ultimate Fallout 4 first Miles Morales sold for in 9.9. That's crazy town. But not as crazy as things were just a few years ago, because you had the variant cover, which I don't know why anybody's more excited about this variant cover than the regular cover, other than artificial scarcity. There are 721 graded copies. There are no 9.9s, thank God, of the variant cover, but the regular old cover, well, the variant, sold for $40,000, and then I see one 2.5 years ago in January 2023, $43,200. It's come back down to earth. Still absurd. $9,240 was the last sale. Fair Market's putting it at $10,000, despite a sale last year as low as $77.23. The bidding on this one was already at $8,005 in the final minutes, and it closed at $8,005. No one's swooping in on that one. But the 9.9, this is the new focus of speculator insanity. Somebody paid $31,001 for the first appearance of Miles Morales in 9.9. It's the one and only right now, but you're only going to have a few months maybe where you can say this is the only copy. Because I bet people are cracking their 9.8s and sending them in to try and get those 9.9s. And there's surely plenty of ungraded books that have the potential to get that 9.9. So enjoy your bragging rights while you can. USA Comics, which I only just learned about. This is a second title for Captain America. It seems like it's mostly Captain America in here, although early on, issue 2 has Captain Terror. Captain Terror does not sound like a good guy. Is that Hitler? Is that Hitler? That is Hitler. Look at Hitler driving his little mole man digger machine. He looks like, what is it, the Underminer from The Incredibles? It's got a steering wheel. The steering wheel does not appear to be attached to anything. By issue 10, we got Captain America here, just doing his thing with Bucky. This might as well be Captain America Comics. It's the same thing, although there seem to be more Japanese as the enemy in USA Comics and Nazis in the Captain America Comics title. There are loads of nasty racist depictions on these USA covers. This is a particularly weird one that just sold. USA Comics 14 and 7.5. There is no census or sales for 7.5. So this 7.5 apparently does not exist, despite its serial number being very old, 20646. This book is in the census on CGC Comics. It was graded in 2019, so we know it exists. I mean, I can see it right here. It just sold, but Go Collect does not seem to think it exists. 7.0 fair market is $9,250 based on 2 sales. The last sale being $9,315 2 years ago on Comic Connect. And we got an asterisk here, which I think maybe means there's a reserve on this one. It sold for $8,850. This has an asterisk as well. These may all have reserves that were not met. Yeah, these 3 maybe didn't sell. So now we're into Vault of Horror. This is some good old fun in these Vault of Horror. Zombie breaking out of the ground. There's some sort of pirate cover. Is that a witch? Not a witch, I'm your wife. This is a late pre-code horror, particularly gory cover with a dismembered arm hanging onto one of those cords on the subway. I'll bet that's going to go for a lot. Let's look it up. Vault of Horror 30 in 8.5, creamed off-white. Fair market's $2,800. Recent sales are lower than that. So I don't think, based on that we're going to get that high. And it doesn't look like we are. No, we are. We are. 3,066. We've already beat this. Comic Collect has beaten the last Heritage sale for 8.5, and then sales are scarce above 8.5. But this sale is already higher than the last 9.0, the last 9.2, the last 9.4. Only the 9.6, which is the highest graded, has exceeded this sale price coming up in 20 seconds. 3,066. It's a great cover. I can understand why people would bid on this one. And 1 second. Let's see if it bid. I could see this going up. Yep, it went up. 2 more bids to 32.66. New record for this grade. Then we have Venom Venom Lethal Protector number 1 in 9.9. I found the prices on this one, issue 1 of Venom, are not that outrageous because we'd seen a ton of Venom in ASM before he got his own book. There are 40 9.9s and 11 10s. So this is not one of the 10s. It's one of the 40 9.9s. 8 years ago, somebody paid $300 for a 9.9. Since then, prices have gone higher up into the thousands and stayed there. These are still getting crazy high prices. Fair market at 9.9 is $3,600. This just closed. It was at $2,500, closed to $2,900. This is not rare. It's just Venom. It's not the first appearance of anybody. Is it Todd McFarlane or is somebody imitating Todd McFarlane? Bagley and Sam De La Rosa cover. So this is Mark Bagley copying Todd McFarlane's style. I just find Venom cheesy. He's fine. He has his place. I get it. A lot of people grew up with Venom. $2,900. Let's move on. Then we got Web of Spider-Man number 1 in 9.9. We got another 9.9 here. What's going to happen with this? Let's look it up. Web of Spider-Man 1. I remember buying this. 1985. I was getting into comics then. Spider-Man was getting really, really popular around this time. The black costume definitely breathed new life into the character. $770. That's nice to see for a 9.9. There are 11 9.9s and 1 10. So last sale for this 9.9 was $598. Very old serial number. Early on, 2009, it sold for $1,793. But since then, it's been well under $1,000. So this one probably isn't going to go higher. $770. Oh, whoa. Whoa, we have a record sale for Web of Spider-Man number 1. Even the 2009 sale for $1,792, which inflation adjusted would be $2,700. Even that sale doesn't come close to what just happened for Web of Spider-Man number 1. Holy smokes, $33.50. It's just almost 5 times the sale price closing for what it was just a few minutes ago. It was $700 and then it shot up to $33.50 for a book that I remember buying as a kid 40 years ago. Weird Fantasy number 13, which is actually number 1. It's the first Weird Fantasy with some scientist putting Peter Thiel's brain inside of an android so he can destroy humanity and leave us all behind. Move to Mars or whatever. We got the 9.8 Gaines file copy, even though it's off-white to white pages. It is not a white pages, but it's the Gaines file copy, and it's the first Weird Fantasy. $13,405 was the bidding. Fair market on this is $18,000. Let's see if it jumped. Only jumped to $14,137. It's not a great cover. It's not a shocking cover. It's not a particularly great piece of artwork. There's some Weird Fantasies with great, non-horrific, non-shocking, just great covers by Al Feldstein, Wally Wood. Yeah, it's a Feldstein cover, but not a particularly great Feldstein cover, and it went for below fair market. Bidding was split on it. That's part of why I would think the 8.0 was at $2,225 and it sold for $2,225. This is a copy that I sold recently. I think I sold about a 1.8 or a 3.0 of this. This is a 9.8 white pages. It's not the Gaines file copy, but it is otherwise perfect with a CVA label on it. $7,500. I think I sold my copy for $200. There are 8 9.8s, at least 2 of which are going to be the Gaines file copy. So the last sale was in 2022 for $5,040 for a 9.8 white pages on Heritage. This one was at $7,500, and let's see what it closed for. $7,500. That is a 50% jump from fair market. It's not a particularly interesting, cool, or exciting one. It's just a great classic 50s rocket ship from 1951. Then we got this one, a 9.4. It looks like Manhattan has been destroyed by a nuclear bomb. I really like these Weird Fantasies. I'm actually kind of a bigger fan of the science fiction than the horror or crime from EC. I like the sci-fi covers. 9.4, fair market's $1,950. This is below it. And it closed for $25.41. It doubled. Huge jump. In the end, I can see why. It's a memorable cover. Looks like Midtown, Lower Manhattan, Wall Street has been destroyed. This is a great alien cover. This has got to be, is it Wally Wood? It's a Feldstein cover with 2 aliens looking quite shocked as 2 different planets collide with Earth simultaneously. Think that's what's happening? I would like to have Neil deGrasse Tyson explain the astronomical justification for this cover. Please, Neil, would you get back to me on that? 9.2 cream to off-white pages. Last sale is $1,150, but the fair market for 9.0 is $1,450. So this should be more than $1,450, but it is a cream to off-white cover. $1,601. Yes, indeed, it sold for $3,100. Wow, I don't see any recorded sales for this book anywhere near what this just sold for. These ECs are getting crazy high prices. ECs are hot. Sci-fi ECs are hot. This is the Weird Science number 1. It's actually number 12. Listing it as number 1, not a good cover, particularly at all. I like this cover, which is about to close in 15 seconds. Weird Science 13, let's look it up. This is Flying Saucers over Washington. This 9.8 off-white to white with a CVA label is at $8,200 in the final seconds. No established fair market. Very few copies of these. 81 graded, 3 9.8s, one of which sold for $68.75. Let's see if it's this one. This is 12320. 12320. We have it. This is a bad scan. ComicLink, do better. This scan does not look anywhere near as good as Heritage's much brighter scan. I don't know if they did some filtering to make this book pop as much as it does, but look at this. This Heritage scan, bright reds and yellows, compared to this ComicLink scan, which does not do it justice. I would love to look at this book in person and see which one is more accurate, because this looks very faded. Maybe somebody put it on the wall and the ink faded, because this sale is from 2019. I don't think so. I wonder if this image was doctored. Anyway, it sold on Heritage for $68.75 with a previous sale on Comic Connect for $8,800. So there's only 3 copies. I see one of them here, and here's the second one. And it sold 6 years ago on Heritage for $68.75. This copy, same copy, just sold on ComicLink, closed at $8,200. So the buyer on Heritage made a little bit of money. They have to pay $820 to ComicLink, so they only take $7,400, $7,380 is their takeaway from this sale. They made $500 minus shipping costs after sitting on it for 6 years. Not great, but that's a high sale. This one just closed. I like this cover. Al Feldstein, once again, it's a funny one. 9.8 off white to white pages, $68.55. This is Weird Science 15. Last sale 6 years ago, $33.75. This is more than double that price. We've got 2 sales on record, both of them between $3,000 and $4,000. $33.75. Now it's selling for $7,869. Huge prices on these EC books. Folks, if you've got an EC sci-fi book in above 9.0 grade, you might want to think about whether you'd like to turn that into money, because ComicLink has got some eager bidders who are buying these books for record-setting prices. I like this Feldstein cover for Weird Science number 6. It's got some goofy looking aliens on it. 3 copies on the census, no recorded sales, none. We got an FMV at 7.5, and then it's just who knows above that. We got 1, 2, 3, 7, 10. We got 11 copies, 8.0 and above. This is a 9.6, 1 of 3. There are very few sales of this, only 62 graded copies. This is a surprisingly rare book. Who knows what the price should be on it. Highest sale ever was 7 years ago for $1,920, and that was a lower grade copy. This one is selling, it was at $5,100 and it closed for $5,400. It's taken 75 years for people to get excited about these books, but prices are soaring on these all of a sudden. I don't know why. Folks are appreciating these artists because these aren't shocking covers. You know, there's no severed heads, there's no dismembered arms, nobody's being drowned. They're just cool, and these are the high grade copies. But this is a Wally Wood, I can tell by looking at this. Yeah, this is a Wally Wood cover. He drew a lot more detail. He seems to be some sort of space Jesus walking out of his rocket ship. Highest graded, Weird Science 13. Let's check this out. Not sure which 13 to do. There we go. This Weird Science 13 and this Weird Science 13. I'm pretty sure it's this one. Yep. 9.8. There's only one in the census and it's sold 2 times. So we should have, oh no. This is the Gaines file copy, and this is not the Gaines file copy. So population of 1, but we can see 2 copies. 10415, 104. This is it. This one sold for $32.50 6 years ago. Sold for $12,000 in April on Heritage, but that was the Gaines file copy. This is not the Gaines file copy, so probably not going to fetch that high of a price. But look at it. It's already up there, $10,750. Let's see what happened. Nope. 2 sales this year for, it says 1, but I'm going to say there are 2 9.8 copies. One sold for $12,000, and that was the pedigree. The other sold for $10,750. So Wally Wood, you're having a moment. There's appreciation for your work long after his death. This is another Wood. Folks, if you're interested in Wally Wood, just Google this. I'm not going to pop it up on the screen, but Google Wallywood Disney. Just do that and read up on it if you want. It's an interesting story. Werewolf by Night 32. That's the only Werewolf by Night that we really care about because that's the first appearance of Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a character who had a moment where people were excited about him. I think that's happened once or twice over the years that some good writer or artist has gotten a hold of Moon Knight and tried to do something with him, but it never really amounts to much. They made it into a series, I think 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. There was a ridiculous spike in prices on that book from speculators who thought Moon Knight was going to be the next big thing. But folks, Moon Knight is just a hard character to get your head around. He's got an all-white costume, multiple personality disorder. He's a mercenary who was left for dead in Egypt, and he crawled over to some sort of statue of Khonshu. It's just esoteric. It is an esoteric character. I might be misusing that word now. People throw around the word iconic a lot. I'm going to say Moon Knight is just not iconic. He's not memorable. He doesn't stick in your head. He's unique. He's offbeat, but not a super compelling character, in my opinion. I have met a few people who were excited about Moon Knight, but I never really buy it. I don't really believe in there being, I think it's kind of like when in high school, I was this kid who was really into the band that nobody had ever heard of because nobody had ever heard of it, not because it was particularly good. I was kind of that guy. I feel like that's the thing with Moon Knight. It's like, oh, I'm into Moon Knight. Whoa. 9.8 off-white pages. We got 25 copies of 9.8, fair market value of $24,000. And that is ridiculous. We had a sale in March of 2022, 11 days before the show debuted on Disney Plus. Somebody paid $70,500 for Werewolf by Night 32. They're regretting that. Don't tell me this is an off-white. Don't tell me this is that copy. No, this is not that copy. This just got created. I'm guessing the person who paid $70,500 for it is still holding it, waiting for it to get back up to that level. And they're going to be waiting a long time because it is now, last sale was $21,600. Fair market is $24,000. Hasn't fully adjusted to the new reality of where this book is at. And I see this line continuing to drop. We're at $18,500. It just closed at $18,500. So this is a new low for this book. 2017 was the last time this book sold for lower, and it sold for significantly lower, $12,811. 2013, it sold for $3,000. Honestly, I think that's where this book should be. The first appearance of Moon Knight is not anything special. Okay, all right. I won't say $3,000. I will say maybe $6,000 is where this book should end up. I don't think it'll ever go back down that far, but Moon Knight is he's just not a big deal, and I think people are waiting for him to happen, and it's not going to happen. 9.4 white pages, fair market on that one is $3,500. Here we appear to be very close already to fair market, and it did not move. So this is about 15% below fair market for the 9.4. The 9.8 went for $18,500, but much farther below fair market. So we had a Wolverine #1 selling in a minute at 9.9. I got my Wolverine #1 around here somewhere that I bought from my local comic shop just to see what I could do with it, see what it would get graded. And mine came in at 9.2. This one is a 9.9. There are 2 10s. There are 41 9.9s. This book has 29,389 graded copies. It is the 6th or 7th most graded comic in existence. I think this is the beginning of the Copper Age, where direct sales had begun, and there's really a day-night thing with this book. No book before this has anywhere near this number of graded copies. I think there was just a big change in the business side of comic books right around 1982. And you have a lot more copies that have been graded, a lot more copies in very high condition. This 9.9 with 11 tracked sales. The last one was 4 months ago. It sold for $10,200 on Heritage. We've got a Heritage from last year that sold for $15,600. We've come down from that. So they're putting the fair market at $10,200, even though there was a sale last year on eBay for $7,200. And we even have some track sales on the 10s. We have one track sale for $15,535. We're not going to see this on the 9.9. It just closed. It was at $49.88 and it closed at $6,469, below the $7,200. This is the lowest sale price on the 9.9 since 2019. The person who bought it 4 months ago on Heritage missed that we're not paying those prices anymore, at least for Wolverine. We just saw Ultimate Fallout go for $31,000, and we saw Web of Spider-Man go for I think $6,000. People are not feeling it for Wolverine #1 anymore. If there's one book in this auction that I am tempted to bid on, I talked about Tales of Astonish 27 and 44, but one book I really want much more than that is X-Men 1. I've owned 2 copies of X-Men 1. I've sold them both. One of them was restored heavily. The other one, I didn't like it. It was faded. So I sold it as the market was dropping for a good price, and I'm looking for a better one. That said, these copies they've got in the high-end featured auction are way outside of my league. They've got a 9.0 selling in a minute and a half, 9.0 white pages. Holy macaroni. The fair market on this 9.0 white pages, it's still 110,000. Peak of the market, we got a sale at 185,000 December of 2021 on Comic Connect, 156,000 on Heritage. The following year, the last sale on it was 108,000 on Heritage, 109,000 on Comic Connect. So we're very squarely at 110,000 for the value of this book. But this is a white pages. That's not a white pages. That's not a white pages. That's an off-white. This is a 9.0 white. This is a better copy than either of those. Then we got 102,000, not a white pages. So this should go for above fair market. This is a great book. It's got a bright future. 20 seconds till it closes. It's at $95,109. If you have $95,000, well, next bid's got to be over 100. If you got 100,000 to spare, folks, you got 10 seconds. You can jump in and snag it. I do think it's going to go up. I think it's going to go for 110,000 because who wouldn't want this? At 9.0, this is a great key. You could argue that it's a high population book. I know a lot of people do. It is a high population book. Who cares? It's the first X-Men. It's first Cyclops, first Beast, first Angel, first Marvel Girl, first Iceman, first Professor X, first Magneto. They all debuted in this issue. And it's the X-Men. And for those who really care, you've got the greens in this copy. The magenta tank ran low as this book was being printed. And so you've got the early copies in the print run having dark green in the upper left box and the text box over there on the right side. And then you've got other copies like this one in 4.5 with a light green. That is not a defect. That's not fading. That is just from the magenta tank running low as this book was being printed. So there's no difference in value between dark green and light green, but it was intended to look darker green, if I'm not mistaken, if I understand my color theory. This is just closed, 95,109. I think it's going to go up. It did not. It's a good price. Whoever got this, good job. You got a very valuable book that should go back up in the years ahead for 15,000 below fair market value. There hasn't been a sale this low in 4 years. There was a 70 of that, and that's a terrible looking 9.0. That's a good looking 9.0. 7 years ago, it sold for 51,000. So the price has shot up on this, but it's legitimately a top shelf book in 9.0. There are probably a lot of 9.0s. Let's see how 35 9.0s, 18 9.2s, only 2 9.8s. Last 9.8 recorded is in 2012. I'm waiting for somebody to sell one of those 2 9.8 copies because there hasn't been $1 million sale yet for X-Men #1. And this is definitely, if any book that hasn't yet reached $1 million sale should reach it, it's this one. Amazing Fantasy 15 is in the $1 million club. Captain America Comics #1, Action 1, Detective 27, probably Batman 1 and Superman 1 have had $1 million sales. I'm not sure. I do believe so. This one hasn't yet. Tales of Suspense has. Tales of Suspense 39 had a $2 million sale. Fantastic Four 1 has. X-Men hasn't yet. And there's every reason why it should. There's a lot of X-Men collectors out there who'd love to have it. This is just a 9.0 and it just sold for 95,000. 7.0, fair market on that one is 19,500. I'd love to have this book. Let's have 7.0 off white to white. 19,500. This is $1 above fair market. Let's see what it closed at. 20,000. $20,001. So this went just above fair market, and well, it should. This one went more than 10% below fair market. I'm sure there were loads of people who wanted it. I know for certain there were loads of people who wanted it. They just didn't have the means. And then we had the 4.5. Now, this is honestly the one I most had my eyes on because the copy I sold was a 4.5. This one has Stan Lee's signature on it. I still have not yet cracked and bought a signature book. I don't want to own one. I don't want a Stan Lee signature comic. So that's why I didn't pay too much attention to this one. X-Men 1 4.5 unsigned, fair market is $72.50 with a signature on it. Do we have a price? Last sale was $45.60, so that's less, significantly less. Good God, $45.60. When was that? This year. Holy crap. Somebody bought a signed 4.5. Restored signed. They shouldn't put this in the signed pile when it's restored. This is a restored 4.5. Oh, this is also restored. Here's a trick, folks. If you've got a restored book and when Stan Lee wasn't dead yet, you could get it signed by Stan Lee, and then it goes in the signed restored section, and people won't see that it's restored until they take a close look at it. A nice trick. Okay, so hard to tell with the signed, but the unsigned 4.5 is going for $72.50 right now. That's quite a bit lower than it was. I know very well what 4.5s were going for, and they were at $10,000 even earlier this year. Now they've dropped to $72.50 because of a run of really low sales. Man, I'm glad I sold my X-Men one when I did. Shoot. So this one was much, much higher. Okay, so fair market of $72.50, and I can already see this one's at $89.50, and it sold for $9,100. This one sold for well above market, but this is where the market was earlier this year. So it dipped. I don't know why it dipped, but it dipped. It should not be as low as it was. The sale is where the book was 5 months ago and should continue to be. And that's it for X-Men 1s. Then we got First Appearance of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and X-Men 4, signed by Stan Lee again. We're going to overlook that. It's an 8.0. There's too few signatures. 5,000 for the 8.0. This one's 5,100 and it sold at 56.55. So X-Men's going above book. That's what I'm seeing. The next X-Men key is the first Juggernaut, 9.2 white pages. This is a very nice copy of the first Juggernaut issue, one of the really good early stories. Fair market $7,750, and it's already above fair market, and it sold for above fair market, just above fair market at $7,900. X-Men's are going, seeing all of these going, at least the keys, going for above fair market. X-Men 14 is a minor key. It's the first Sentinels. Not that minor of a key. It's a key. 9.6 off white to white pages. There are a lot of 9.6s. This one's got a fair market of 11,000. Already we're above fair market. And it closes for $251 above fair market. First Sentinels book. That's kind of it for early X-Men titles. There aren't a lot of keys. Mimic, not so much. 2,809. This closed for 2,809. Then we got this 9.8 off-white with a Steranko cover. This is the first new logo for X-Men. Still not Uncanny X-Men, but it's the modern-looking X-Men logo. It's just a good cover. I don't know that it's too significant other than having Steranko draw it. 3,925. Let's see. X-Men 50 in 9.8, 6,000 fair market, 5,100. This one goes for below fair market. Bidding was split. That's part of why. 9.6 fair market is 3,100. Below fair market. So here we're 20% below fair market. So not a lot of interest. Later in the Silver Age run of X-Men, there's an X-Men 59 and 9.8 that just sold for an outrageous amount of money. It was bought by a certified lunatic. Look at these values. 9.0, $290, 9.2, $350, 9.4, $700, 9.6, $2,900, 9.8, $36,000. What the hell? We got sale prices for the 9.8 over the years. $2,600, $2,390, $5,400, $5,760. Boom. Last year on Heritage, somebody bought it for $36,000. The same copy that sold 2 years earlier on Heritage for $5,760, they flipped for $36,000. What is going on? Something very fishy with that. Maybe a slip of the finger on the keyboard or something, put in too high of a price, but you need two people to do that. If you put in a bid of 36,000, it's not going to sell for 36,000 unless somebody else put a bid for 35,000 in. So how did this happen? Now we got a 9.6 white pages. Let's hope that did not influence the price, because we want to see this 36,000 sale go away. It should not have happened. 2,900 is the fair market of 9.6. I'll bet you this one comes in. The X-Men's have been doing well so far, but based on that issue 50 and 56 sale, I'm going to say it's going to be below that 2,900. And here it is, 1,655. 2,900 is the fair market. Let's see what it sold for. 2,200. Okay, good. We're calming down on X-Men 59. Here we got 94. Now we're getting into Chris Claremont's run. This used to be the key for the new X-Men above Giant Size X-Men 1. I only recently learned that. Now Giant Size X-Men 1 goes for more. This is a 9.6. Let's see. X-Men 94 in 9.6 grade, fair market of $6,000. This has got a CVA label. It's white pages. It's already at $6,600, sold for $6,600. So that sold for 10% above fair market. And we've got the last two sales at $6,250 on eBay. Then we got a low one at $4,800 and a high one at $1,600. And then $10,000 earlier this year on eBay by someone who was not paying attention. $9,000 on eBay. Prices are all over the place. I think people are speculating on X-Men coming into the MCU, the new X-Men series. There's a lot of excitement on X-Men, but those people paid too much. This person did not. It's a good book to buy. 9.4 off-white pages, $2,655. Let's see what the fair market on that is. Fair market's $3,300. This is well below fair market and it closed for, again, 10% above fair market. $3,600 for the 9.4 off-white pages. It looks a little yellow to me. Maybe that's just the label I'm seeing. Yeah, the label's yellower here. And it's a very early serial number. This is a 20-year-old serial number, I think 0084. I'm going to the First Kitty Pryde closing in 15 seconds, X-Men 129. First Kitty Pryde, there's been some speculation, excitement about this book because I guess Kitty Pryde is thought to be coming in the new movie, or maybe she's being added to the second series of the show on Disney Plus. I don't know. Regardless, $1,400, that's a high price for the book, higher than what I've seen. $1,400, 9.8. It's a $1,500. And it sold for $1,700. So yeah, 20% above fair market. There is excitement about Kitty Pryde. This is a newly graded copy. It's a 461 serial number, 9.8 white pages. So somebody did well with this. And that's it for X-Men. And that's it for this whole auction. We're done. We made it. We're done with the ComicLink Summer Featured Auction. Holy crap. I think I had about 4 hours of video just previewing these, and then another 12 hours I've spent watching these auctions close over the last 3 nights. If you stuck with me through it, thank you. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. I'm done. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to spend the next probably 2 weeks editing these videos down and putting them up. I'm now done recording, but I got a lot of editing to do, and it's going to take me a while to get these up. I am just one man. I'm doing the best I can. My voice is gone. I've been sitting here for a long time. I'm going to go play some Breath of the Wild, eat some dinner. Thank you very much. Girls to Astonish signing out. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.